Hey guys, today we are going to talk about something called distributive property. So distributive property is definitely something that you talked about in 5th grade. I don't know how much you touched on it, but you did learn it, and I heard it's like a crazy way of learning it, so I'm going to briefly go over it and kind of talk about it. But it does seem a little weird, and you wonder, like, why do I even have to do this? But the distributive property is actually probably the number one property that you use in algebra, which you actually do a decent amount of algebra in 6th grade. So this is kind of like your first little peek at what algebra is going to look like this year for me. We're just doing it with numbers, and then later in the year we're actually going to throw in some letters or variables, and you'll get to use the distributive property in that way. So I'm going to start easy on you today. So you're actually going to be in your packet. So you did the review worksheet yesterday, and the following page is your notes for today. So I literally just want you finding this page. It has like the 4 rectangles on it. We're going to do the front and back of this, so it actually looks just like my notes. So you don't really have to write the examples down. We're just going to work right on the paper, okay? So you don't have to have your math notebook out. Your packet is your notebook for today. If you do not have the packet, then you are just doing this in your math notebook. I apologize. I tried to get you the packet, so maybe pick up the next one so you don't have to do everything in your notebook next time. I'll have someone pick it up for you, okay? So, distributive property. So, the actual, technical definition of distributive property, it says that it lets you multiply a sum. So multiplying a sum, so the sum would be 3 plus 4, 2 times 3 plus 4, by multiplying each addend separately and then adding the products. So you can multiply 2 times 3, that goes right here, and then 2 times 4, right here. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, add those to get 14. So the word distribute itself means to hand out or to give out. So in this problem, we're taking the number or the factor outside the parentheses that we're multiplying, and we're giving it to each thing inside the parentheses, or each addend inside of the parentheses. So you did 2 times 3 and then 2 times 4. Okay, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. So notice each of these have a 2. It was given out. So the distributive property I often do in my head when I'm trying to do mental math very quickly. Like, let's say I need to do 3 times 43. Which, that reminds me. So multiplication this year. You are used to writing it with an X. 3 times 43. I'm going to actually introduce 2 different ways to write multiplication to you this year, and one of them is going to be parentheses. I think you kind of were previewed it last year, so 3 times 43 can also be written like that. Kind of just smush them together with parentheses. Some of you have also said that you've seen like the asterisk. 3 times 43. So those are some ways that multiplication can be written, and I'm actually going to show you one more once we get to algebra. But if you ever see me writing like a number next to parentheses and another number, that means to multiply. So I'll try to use the X. I forget sometimes, but you will get used to it. I promise you'll do it a ton this year. So if I'm actually doing 3 times 43, I will break up 43 in my head. So I would actually do 3 times 40 plus 3. I'm going to break up 43 so I can do mental math in my head better, because I can do 3 times 40, which is 120, and then I can do 3 times 3, which is 9. 120 plus 9 is 129. And if you would do 3 times 43 in a calculator, you would get 129. So I actually use the distributive property quite often in my head, and I'm sure adults in your life probably do the same thing. So it is definitely a useful skill. It's just kind of weird, okay? So once again, distribute means to hand out. So you take the number that is being multiplied on the outside and you give it to each addend inside the parentheses. So we're going to do some examples together on the next slide. So this should be, I think, to the right on your page. Okay, so how the distributive property works is, if I'm doing this first example right here, 3 times 2 plus 6. So I know all of you just want to be like, well, just add 2 and 6 to get 8, and then 8 times 3 is 24, duh. But no, we're using the distributive property. So you take the number outside, which is 3, and we're going to distribute it to each term inside the parentheses and multiply. So we're going to do 3 times 2 plus 3 times 6. So then go and multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 6 is 18. And that's technically the answer I'm looking for. I'm looking for a sum. Okay, so I just want 2 numbers that you're adding. I would go and check to make sure that you did it correctly, because we know that 6 plus 8 is 24. And originally you wanted to do 2 plus 6 is 8, 3 times 8 is 24. And notice they match, so I'm happy. Okay. So I'm giving you time to write that down in case you didn't already. Okay, so the next example is 4 times 5 plus 3. So we're going to use the distributive property. If you want to go and like do it the normal way that your brain wants to do it so we can check it, you would do 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 times 8 is 32. So we're going to use the distributive property and see if we get that same answer. So you're going to distribute the 4 to each term inside the parentheses. So 4 times 5. Plus comes down, 4 times 3. And notice I'm drawing the arrows. I would suggest you do that when you do these problems because it helps you remember to do it for both terms. It's a very classic mistake to just do 4 times 5 and then bring down the 3. A lot of kids don't give the 4 to both terms. So I like to draw the arrows because it reminds me to do it to both. So then 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 3 is 12. And that's actually the answer I'm looking for. But to check that we did it right, 20 plus 12 is 32. 32 and 32 match, so I'm good. Okay, so one more, and I'm going to have you try some on your own. So I'm doing 2 times 8 plus 6. So I want to take the 2 and I want to distribute it to both terms inside the parentheses. So I would do 2 times 8 plus 2 times 6. 2 times 8 is 16. Oh. 2 times 6 is 12. And that's actually my answer that I'm looking for. But 16 plus 12 is 28. So normally you probably would have just done 2 times 8 plus 6 is 14. And 2 times 14 is 28. Okay? So a couple things to point out. What I'm looking for, remember, is just the sum. I'm taking a multiplication problem, multiplying a number and a sum, and just writing a sum. That's what I want to do. So 2 numbers added together. Also, if you notice, my work kind of goes down. So every time I do something, it drops down to the next line, and I don't use equal signs. So that's a very algebraic way to do your work. So you're going to see me do that quite often. So this is the way you are required to do your work for distributive property. There's no way around it. You got to do it. So if I ask for a picture of your work, or if I want to see your work, or I'm grading it at any point, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, you need this specific work. So make sure you copy it down and you're doing it the way I want you to do it. Okay. So here are 3 more examples. I want you to go and pause the video and try these on your own. And when you come back, I will do them for you. Okay, so pause it and get it done. Okay, so hopefully you did these on your own. Shame on you if you did not. So if I'm doing 6 times 3 plus 9, I'm going to take the 6 and distribute it to both terms. So 6 times 3 plus 6 times 9. So then we have 18 plus 54. And that's the answer I'm looking for. But when I add those together, I actually get 72. And so I'm going to go check. You would do 6 times 12, which is 72. Okay, so I'm happy. That one's good. Next one is take the 7, distribute it to both terms. 7 times 4 plus 7 times 8. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 8 is 56. That's what I'm looking for. But just go and double check. 56 plus 28 is 84. And normally I would do 7 times 8 plus 4 is 12. And 7 times 12 is 84. Perfect. And last one. So distributing the 8 to each term. 8 times 8 plus 8 times 5. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 5 is 40. That's what I'm looking for. Notice I'm circling or boxing my answer so it's obvious. And 104 is your answer. So just to check, 8 times 13 is what I would normally do. And 8 times 13 is 104. Okay, so we are good. Okay, so that's like the normal distributive property. So I'm going to like throw a little bit of a curveball, but not too bad. So I actually want you to kind of do it in reverse. So, and this is all going to make sense with what I teach you on Friday. We're actually going to mesh greatest common factor and distributive property on Friday. So this is kind of like the stepping stone to get us there. So bear with me on doing this. I know this is kind of weird, but so you are going to do the reverse distributive property. So notice how this example right here looks very similar to this step in our work. Okay, we have 2 sets of multiplication problems being added together. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to go in reverse from this second step back to the first. And all you need to do is you need to pull out the common factor. So I think the easiest way to do this is to circle the factor you see in both addends or both multiplication problems. So I see a 3 in both of these. So the 3 is going to come out front. And then whatever is left after you circle those 2 goes inside the parentheses. 2 plus 3 goes inside. Okay? So that's just like undoing the distributive property. Because if I would redo it, it would be 3 times 2 plus 3 times 3. Which is what we started with, okay? So it's kind of like going in reverse, which is a little different than what I think you did last year. So that's what I'm looking for. So in this second example, 4 times 5 plus 4 times 2, circle what they have in common, which is the 4, pull it out front, and that's what's going to be distributed to whatever is left. 5 plus 2 goes in parentheses. So it's 4 times 5 plus 2. And that's all you got to do. Okay? So I would like you to try these on your own. So pause the video and see if you can do them. Okay, hopefully you try these on your own. So if I'm doing 6 times 5 plus 6 times 7, same thing. Circle what they have in common, which is the 6. Bring it out front. And 5 plus 7 goes inside the parentheses. 4 times 8 plus 3 times 8. Well, the 8 is what they have in common, so that's going to come out front to get distributed. And 4 plus 3 goes inside the parentheses. Okay? So at this point, if you know that the parentheses represent multiplication, you could honestly write these as 8 times 4 plus 3. Because you will, and this one is 6 times 5 plus 7. You will often see me, should probably close that, often see me write it without the multiplication symbol, but I'm going to try to write it for you just so you remember. So you can write it either way, whatever way that you prefer, okay? So after this lesson, you have a page to practice in your packet. So you're going to scroll past all of these notes and rectangles, and you're going to do this page that says distributive property. Okay? So I went and did a couple problems on this page for you. So notice like 1 is done and 7 is done. So I have the work that you need to do right here. So it's very, very, very similar to what I just did. Notice I go and I find the sum, and then I also just go and check for you. So this should look just like what we did in the packet. So you have examples in the packet, plus you have examples on this worksheet. So you're doing all 21 problems. Yeah, it's 21 problems. It sounds like a lot, but each problem takes like 10 seconds. Like I just showed you, super easy. So then after you are done doing this worksheet, you're going to check with the answer key provided on Google Classroom to make sure you're doing it right. And then when you're done that, you have a 5-question formative to do on this, and then you are done for the day. If you have questions or want to see me do more problems, please let me know. And if you are good to go, then I will talk to you tomorrow, okay? Have a great day.